Can someone confirm if you're able to see my screen?
Yes, yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. So my name is Dixon. I will be your trainer throughout the course. I'm working as a technical architect and a lead consultant for many small companies uh, as a freelancer, and I'm taking care of implementations in countries like UAE, I mean Emirates like UAE and like Dubai and Abu Dhabi, implementing their interfaces for various hospitals and clinics, and also working on various projects in the US. So I have total of 13 years of experience in healthcare integration industry. So worked on various data standards for healthcare like HL7, CCD, FHIR, IHE profiles, and a little bit on X12 and other ASTM standards as well. So I also worked on various integration engines like Rhapsody, Mirth, Integration Buddy, Connector, Ensemble, and our training is going to mainly focus using Mirth as an integration engine. And I have been training resources for the past 7 years online. Mostly it is online. We do few corporate batches as well, and we have trained around 12 to 15 companies so far. So that's very little about myself. So what we are going to learn through this training is all about HL7. So training is designed in such a way that it will both be practical and it will also include few theoretical sessions which would help us to uh, clear our certification. So the intention is not certification completely. The whole intention is for someone to understand what is HL7, how do we use HL7, where do we hear this term and all, and also induce some practical knowledge of how do we use it in real-time implementations, how can we implement an interface from scratch using HL7 as the data standard. And we will go through several topics, but let's run through the course curriculum. I'm hoping that few of you have already received it, but I just wanted to quickly run you guys through it so that you guys can have a picture on what we are going to cover throughout our training. So we would be covering basics today. Today is the session one, and we'll be taking a look at what is hospital workflow, what is the purpose of HL7, where did it start, how did it come from, how did it progress slowly, and we'll also see what is the structure of the HL7 message. We'll understand the concepts behind how the structure is formed. We'll also take a look at the basic structure, and we'll see what are the controlling characters that would uh, define or that would add structure to the HL7 message. And then we will jump on to the core concepts and principles which you to take a look at each message type. We are going to look at 5 most frequently used message types. These are the message types that would cover 70% of the healthcare data integration implementations. We'll take a look at various segments. What are the segments that are involved in ADT message? We'll take a look at SIU TFT, and we'll also take a look at ORM, ORU, MDM. QRY is deprecated. We won't touch that. We'll take a look at ACK as well, which is nothing but acknowledgements. So we'll go through all of these message types and their detailed structure so that we have a basic idea about these most frequently used message types. Alongside, once we are done with that, I'll also tell you how to deal with new message types when you encounter them. So there are several message types, more than 80 plus message types as part of HL7 specification. So we cannot learn everything at once, but we can have an idea on how to deal with new message types when we encounter them in our real-time uh, work at our practical work and real-time implementations. And once that is done, we'll take a look at data types, which are kind of backbone for the HL7 messaging structure. So we'll see what are the various data types that we have. There are around 90 data types in HL7 version 2.8. We'll be covering around 35 message data types, which are most frequently seen, and so that you can get an idea of how do we interpret a data type. Then we will jump into the practical approach. So till the data types, we will be taking a look at what is each message types, what is the functional use, where do we use it, and all. But once we complete data types, that's where we start our practical approach of how do you actually integrate HL7. So by the data type session, you will get an idea of the structure and all. You'll be able to read HL7 messages. You'll be able to write HL7 messages manually. But practically, how do we create HL7 messages and send them to another person or another system altogether? That is something can be achieved with the help of an integration engine. So there are many integration engines out there in the market. Uh, Famous ones like Rhapsody, Cloverleaf, CorePoint, Ensemble, uh, G's connector, which is kind of deprecated, but people are still using it. So these are various integration engines. Mirth is one of the famous ones in this list, and Mirth is the free and open source software. So that's the reason Mirth is used by many small clients because of its free nature. Most of the people tend to use Mirth for its great stability and its uh, wonderful processing mechanism and easy to learn curve that we have with Mirth. Alongside, we have other integration engines as well, like Rhapsody, Cloverleaf, and all, as I mentioned, but they are costly, too costly to purchase. So small clients, not only small clients, but also big clients um, are using Mirth. And I know I have worked in the past with huge clients who are using Mirth as their integration engine. So one thing with integration engines is once you learn one of the integration engine, it is not a very difficult task for you to learn other integration engines. It may take 1.5 months to get a good grip of other integration engines. Reason being, process is pretty much same. What you do with an integration engine, the outcome and the result is exactly the same with any of the integration engines that you learn. So when you get introduced to new integration engine, it's all about understanding what are the various options that we have, what are the GUI related changes that we may interact with when you're dealing with new integration engines. So with Merge, we'll start from basics. We are going to start from zero. We'll see what is the architecture. We will try to understand them in the layman terms, how the message processing works in Merge Connect, and then we will jump into the application workflow. We need to understand how the application works and what are the various options that we have. We need to browse through all the various kinds of options, right? So we will go through the entire options and see what are the various options that we have. Then we will jump into the method of how do you create channels, what are the various channels are nothing but interfaces in Mirth Connect. So we'll take a deep dive into how to create an interface from scratch, as I just mentioned, and we will complete all the um, message or interface building process and also the message building process. Then we will get into the core concepts of transformations, which is to manipulate a message, construct a message, or destruct a message. How do we construct, how do we destruct, how do we get the data from database, how do we write it to a database, how do we use various connector models to send message to different vendors using different connection models like TCP IP, um, databases, and file reader to file writer. Yeah, so we'll look at all of these connection types. And then we'll jump into creating channels. So we'll be creating our channels in our sessions. I'll show you how to create each of these channels based on individual connection models. And we will run through step-by-step process, line-by-line process. How do we code it? So for to learn HL7 transformations in Mirth Connect, you need to be aware of JavaScript and a concept called as E4X. So we'll be going through these two concepts as well. We'll touch base from zero on these two concepts because most of the people who join the training are not from IT background. So I go with these concepts from zero and complete the things that are necessary for you to work on the integration engine. So when I say JavaScript, we are not going to touch base on the entire thing. We are going to see what are the topics that are necessary for integrating or using Mirth as an integration engine. JavaScript is the go-to language, not only in Mirth, but also in Rhapsody and other engines as well. So it will be useful for you in other engines too. Next, you have once we go through JavaScripting and all, we'll complete Mirth Connect. And after that, we'll have a couple of sessions on our certification program. How you have to prepare for certification, what are the topics that you have to go through. By the time we complete Mirth, we would have completed most of the content of one of the chapters in certification. So we will see what are the chapters that are left over that we have to go through, and we'll be going in depth about conformance. What is conformance? What is message profiling? We'll talk about various aspects like what is constrainable profiles, what is conformant profile, non-conformant profile, and various things about conformance. And finally, we'll wrap up our sessions trying to get our head around other data standards that we have within healthcare industry. HL7 is not just one of them. Sorry, HL7 is not only one of them, but we have other data standards as well, like FHIR, CCD, and all. So we will touch base. I'll give you an introduction about CCD. I'll give you an introduction about FHIR, just for your basic understanding, so that you guys can explore it more in your future career. So that's what we are going to cover. And how long the training would go? It would be for 4 to 6 weeks, depending on number of sessions we are going to have. Weekly, we'll have 6 sessions uh, from Monday to Saturday, every day 7 a.m. Indian Standard Time, which is 9:30 p.m. Eastern Time, US. And this would run for 4 to 5 weeks or 4 to 6 weeks, depending on the progress that we go with the training. Many questions come up during the sessions. So in case you are unable to install the Mirth Connect, so we will be looking through that. We'll walk through those problems during the sessions. That's the reason we will end up in having 28 to or 25 to 32 sessions. So that's the reason we'll be running it for 4 to 6 weeks. During that, I mean, that would be the entire training course timeline. And yeah, so those are the timelines and the time. And at times, if I have any production deployments, we may cancel the session, but I would let you know beforehand whether we are going to cancel the session for that specific day or not. So we'll be creating a WhatsApp group for our communication. So everyone who would enroll would be uh, part of that WhatsApp group, and we'll continue our communication till we complete the training through that. And few few of them could not make it to the session at this time because of the time zone or various other constraints that they have. So we do upload all of our training videos to a drive and share it with all the participants who are enrolled in the session, and they can go through the recording and they can contact me through WhatsApp if they have any questions. So we do that on a daily basis. Soon after the session, maybe in 2 3 hours, SV Institute would upload the videos to the folder, and you guys can go through that. If you have any questions, you can reach out to me and I will respond as soon as I can. Okay, so let us go ahead and jump into the session. If you have any questions, we can take it at the end. So everyday session would be for around 60 minutes, 45 minutes of session, and then 5 to 10 minutes of questionnaire. We'll open up for questions, discuss on the questions if someone has anything, or else we'll wrap up the session for that particular day. So by the end of today's session, we'll see what is hospital workflow, what is HL7, where do we hear this term HL7, why we need HL7, how did we conclude? We in the sense, how did the industry conclude on this name? We'll also talk about interfaces, what is the role of HL7 in healthcare interfaces. We'll also talk about interoperability and HL7 message structure. So we need to be aware of few general terms. Few of us are not from healthcare background, so these terms are the ones which we will be extensively using down the line throughout our training. So let's quickly understand them. So PM or PMS is practice management system. So this is a software that is used by the front end staff or the receptionists to handle patients, register patients, register their details, create appointments, manage doctors' appointments, calendars, and all. So apparently, it is managing the entire hospital. Hence, it is called as practice management system or practice management application. Next, you have EHR. EHR is electronic health record. This application is used by many different providers who are nothing but clinicians or doctors or nurses. So apparently, this application is used to maintain the clinical data of the patient. So mainly you will see this software in on the doctor side of the hospital. And then you have HIS. HIS information, it is basically hospital information system, a combined console of PM and EHR system, meaning all the modules that are part of PM system and also all the modules that are part of EHR system are combined together to form one application. So that is called as hospital information system. Next, you have LIS or LIMS, which is nothing but lab information system or lab information management system. This is another application used specifically by laboratories to define, basically to handle their orders, results, and all. Uh, so we have various labs, right? Quest, LabCorp, uh, and many other different labs. So those labs will be using this specific application. Then you have few terminologies which are nothing but ICD, CPT. ICD is you can assume that it's a library which would include all the list of diseases that are present in the world today, and each disease can be identified with a unique code. So those codes are present in the ICD library. So it is called as International Classification of Diseases, which would classify all the diseases that are part of the world. So just to identify each disease uniquely, we have this option called ICD library. Similarly, once doctor identifies the disease, doctor has to apply some procedure, right? So CPT codes are the ones which will represent all the procedures that can be performed. So CPT will have list of all the procedure codes along with the unique code. Okay, so we would come across a lot of CPT codes as well during our training. Then we have CCDs, which is these are CCDs, HIE and IHE. These three go hand in hand. CCDs are documents, basically summary documents is what you can think for now. They would tell you what happened to the patient once patient visits the hospital. It may be an inpatient visit or an outpatient visit. Once patient is in the hospital, what are the various things, what are various data sections that are captured can be represented in a CCD. We'll take a look at an example CCD of CCD down the line. So to operate CCDs, we would need entities called HI, which is Health Information Exchange, and IHE. We'll talk more about these three aspects during our last sessions. But mainly, these are the terms that we'll be using during in the initial phase of the session. So let us quickly go through hospital workflow. This is the basic where we should start from. Hospital workflow is something that would act as a blueprint for the entire HL7 messaging standard. So during our course, we'll be referring back to the hospital workflow a lot of times so that we understand how exactly HL7 message operation takes place. So this is where it all starts. So that's where we will also start. So hospital workflow would include when a patient is walking in, he will reach out to the receptionist and he would say that I want to go ahead and meet so and so doctor. And then receptionist would ask whether you are here for the first time or have you been here earlier. Then if patient is visiting for the first time, then receptionist would go ahead and grab all the details like demographics. Basically, demographics are nothing but patient's personal details like first name, last name, date of birth, gender, any national identifier number like SSN number or Aadhaar number, and you will also have various address details and email address, race, ethnicity, and language details. So there will be many basic details about the patient that would fall or that would be part of demographic information. So once the demographic information is captured, a receptionist would obviously ask for which doctor patient wants to meet, and they will schedule an appointment for that particular doctor. So once this demographics and appointment information is stored or captured in the PM system, which is nothing but our practice management application, the data would be sent over to the doctor's desk. How it is going and all, we'll take a look at that in the future slides. But just assume that data is being sent from PM system to the EHR system, which is present at the doctor's desk. So when the patient reaches the doctor, patient and doctor would have a deep discussion about what problem the patient is facing, what are the symptoms, and all. So this particular situation where patient is meeting the doctor and discussing his problem is called as encounter. So whenever someone says encounter, it means that it is a discussion that is going on between the patient and the doctor. And the patient would go ahead and explain all of his problems and symptoms. Doctor will take a look at them. If he is able to determine and diagnose what the problem is or what the issue is, well and good. If it is not, then doctor would go ahead and place an order, tests to test various things like it may be a blood culture or maybe urine culture or it may be a thyroid, whatever test. So usually that is where we end up most of the times, right? Doctors wouldn't be able to clearly or pinpoint, clearly determine or pinpoint that this is the problem just by looking at the symptoms. So they would go ahead and perform the test. They would go ahead and order a test, and this test information that so and so test has to be performed for so and so patient will be sent over to the lab. And the lab people would go ahead and collect the samples from the patient, test it, and send it back to the doctor's desk, which is nothing but the EHR application. And doctor would review the results that were received by the patient, received from the lab, and they would go ahead and then prescribe some medicine to the patient based on the results. And from there, patient would go ahead and leave the hospital. So once all of these are done, once patient's lab related tests are done, patient gets their prescription, take the medicine, and once all of this process is done, charges related to each of these aspects, it may be provider related charges or it may be lab related charges, all the charges will be sent back to the receptionist desk, and receptionist would go ahead and generate a claim and send it over to the insurance company. An insurance company will go ahead and remit that claim and saying that so and so amount is granted, and that is where the loop closes. Okay, so that would conclude what can happen, or that would conclude the entire workflow for our patient life cycle within the hospital. So this is kind of a blueprint. Why and all we will understand in the future. Few of you might be very well aware of this process, but I just wanted to share it for rest of the folks who are not from healthcare background. So now let us jump into the little technical aspects of where HL7 comes into play, why it has come into play. So I would like to start quickly with a small metaphor so that we can understand a few things clearly. Uday, I am putting you on mute if you don't mind. All right. So let us go ahead and understand why HL7 has come into play. Let's take a quick example. Let's say that we have 2-3 different people from different countries. These people have to talk to each other back in 1980s, let us assume. Obviously, English was not very well established at that point of time. So if US guy has to communicate with India, either US guy has to learn Hindi or Indian guy has to learn English. Similarly, if Indian guy has to communicate with the Chinese guy, yeah, either of them have to learn either Hindi or Chinese language. So if these three people have to communicate with each other, they have to learn one or the other language. So if it is just one language, then that's okay. What if you have to converse with some other person who is in Denmark, who is in Russia, who is in Germany? We cannot end up in learning all the individual languages of every country to communicate, right? So that is when slowly or unknowingly, English has emerged as the common medium of communication throughout the world. And today we are communicating with each other in English, and all can understand and communicate in English, right? So English has emerged as a standard in the sense when most of the people use that one single particular language, it usually emerges and evolves as a standard, right? So that's where we are able to communicate throughout the world, even if you don't know their regional language today. In a very similar manner, whenever applications are talking to each other, which is nothing but sending the data from one system to another, the aspect that we have seen out in our previous slide. So in when patient gets registered in the PM system, the data should obviously flow from this PM system to the HR system, or else doctor would not have that patient's information, right? So eventually the data has to flow. So that is a need that should happen, which means the app should transact data from one system to another. And this is called as apps talking to each other. Let's understand that in that way for now. So when these apps have to talk to each other through that exchange of data format, how this exchange happens is something that is quite difficult. Okay, so every application that you deal with will have two aspects, front end and the back end. Front end is nothing but the actual application that you see, where you interact with the application and all. And backend is nothing but the data store, which would actually store the data. So we call them as database. So when you're trying to save one patient record or save something within your application, you are apparently storing it in the database. So every application has that database to store the data entirely. Now, when the data has to transact from PM database to the HR database, obviously we need data integration engineers who would integrate this database with this database. So let us suppose that we have one engineer for both the applications. Then he has to thoroughly understand what is the architecture of this database so that he would know where to pick up the data from. And then he should also thoroughly aware of this database architecture so that he can go ahead and insert the data into this database architecture. It's like Indian language and Chinese language, so that this person would help communicating between these two by understanding both the languages in detail, which is pretty much time consuming process. At the same time, let us assume that if we have two different data integration engines from these two applications, then there would be a deep discussion on how we want to exchange the data, what all once they conclude on the format they want to exchange, whether it is XML or JSON or some other X format. Apparently they have to have a deep discussion on how should the format look like, right? Even that would take a lot of time to convert the data into that specific format and send it over and understand what structure they have to use and all. So there is no common medium of communication which would bring down this time consumed, bring down the effort that is there to integrate these two applications. Uh, At the end of the day, it is inevitable that these applications should integrate with each other, or else hospitals cannot operate. So that's the problem statement that we had back in 1980s. And the time consumed and the complications involved in integrating two applications was too high. Let us say that it's taking 6 months to 9 months for one implementation. What if PM application has to interact with 10 different applications? Will it take 10 years? That's huge, and that is not a better approach, right? So that is where HL7 has come into play. So what they did is same like our English language. They said that we will have a common structure for transacting the data, which is called as HL7, and everyone needs to understand HL7. This is the constraint among all the applications or all the software products who are creating these HL7 healthcare related applications. So what happened is, what PM would do in that case, they will convert the data into HL7 and just send it over. All that they have to do is generate HL7 message structure with all the data that they want to transact and send it over to the electronic health record. The person on the other side would grab HL7. As they understand HL7, the communication between PM and EHR guys would decrease a lot because the structure is common, the understanding is common. Now, a translator is not needed to explain them HL7, right? We are talking in English, you understand English, I understand English. So we are able to interpret what I am saying and what you're saying, and we are able to understand that, right? In the same way, when HL7 message is generated from PM system, anyone who receives that HL7 and who can understand HL7 would be able to grab the data from that HL7. So this has greatly decreased the timeline that is involved in integrating one interface or creating one interface or bridge between PM and EHR or various other application systems. And not only that, once they create one specific structure for one implementation or one application, they can reuse the same thing, which would cut down the implementation time again, or which would cut down the development time again. So that is also another advantage. So the time that was used to consume 9 months, 1 year to implement one interface has drastically came down to 1 month, 1.5, 2 months. Okay, so that is how HL7 has helped a lot in the past, and that is how HL7 has come into play back in 1980s. So I have been talking about this term interface. So what is an interface? Interface is nothing but, in simple terms, a bridge that would connect from one end of the cliff to the other end of the cliff. Okay, so if there is no bridge between two cliffs, you won't be able to travel from one end to the other end, right? In the same way, when one application wants to talk to other application, an interface is built, and this interface is a bridge or a tunnel, which would act as the channel or the tunnel to go ahead and send the data from PM to EHR, EHR to lab to maybe PM system or insurance companies. So all of these are these interconnections between PM various applications are called as interfaces. So we would be developing interfaces or constructing interfaces as integration engineers so that data can transact from one system to another. So this is one part of it, developing the integration bridge, and then there are many other layers to complete that integration. Okay, so let us go ahead and so what is HL7 in basic terms? It is nothing but a messaging standard. Many think that it is a language, and many call it as a language as well, but apparently it's not a language. We just coined the term as language so that it would be easy to call, but it is a messaging standard, a data standard that is used to tell that this is the standard structure that you have to follow if you want to transact data from one system to another. Okay, so we will see in a bit how did we arrive, or how did we end up in the name HL7 in a bit. But HL7 is being used in more than 28 countries today. There are many different countries like Australia, US, Canada, many countries in the UK, and many um, countries like India and Pakistan. So there are many different countries who are using HL7 today. So let us understand how did we end up in this name called HL7. So it's quite interesting concept. How did they end up in this name? And that is purely based on something called as OSA. So OSA is nothing but it is a concept which is called as open systems interconnection. Apparently, it is a 7-layer model which is actually used today to, not just today, but also used in the world of networking, where you want to transact the data from one system to another. In what way? For example, now I'm presenting my screen. You all are able to see my screen, right? How is that happening? How is the form or the presentation that is present in my system, literally in my system, is actually being presented in your screen's display? How is that happening? So apparently my PPT is traveling all through the internet and reaching you guys, and that is being presented to you. Okay, the moment I switch the screen, it is literally happening that the packets are traveling all through the internet and they are being presented to you. So how is that particular transmission is happening is completely based on this OSI model. So the uppermost layer that you're seeing on your screen, just assume it this way, the uppermost layer that you're seeing on your screen is called as application layer. Behind it, just assume that behind your desktop screen or laptop screen, there are 7 more layers or 6 more layers. Each layer has its own duty. It would perform certain tasks and finally convert the data that I am presenting into physical packets. So this last layer that you're seeing, physical layer, is connected to your Ethernet port on your laptop. Okay, and those packets do travel through the cables and reach you. And once it reaches your physical port on your laptop, they are reverse engineered or reverse interpreted and then be presented to your application layer. Okay, so for me, it is from top to bottom. It would go ahead and break it down into packets, send it through the internet. For you, once you receive it, you are interpreting it. I mean, basically, your application is, your system is interpreting it and displaying that on your screen. So this is an interesting concept you can go through in detail. Not very much needed for us. I just wanted to uh, give you its functionality or let you know its functionality. How is it related to HL7? When we construct HL7 messages, we deal with that in the application layer. So we run this construction, mapping, transformations, and all in the application layer itself, which is the 7th layer. That is the reason we call it as HL7. H represents health related data, so we call it as health. Level 7 represents the 7th layer of the OSI model. Okay, so that's how we concluded on this name called HL7. But go through this, go through some wiki regarding this if you are hearing this for the first time. It is very, very nice, interesting concept. So let's have a little overview about HL7. Now that we know why HL7 is used, we are not introduced to the structure yet, but we know what is HL7, why HL7 is used. Let's see more about HL7. So like any other language, HL7 has its own syntax. Again, it's not a language. We'll refer to it as language for some time so that we can understand it easily, how it is similar to a language. Okay, so like any other language, every language has its own grammatical syntaxes and all, right? In the very similar way, HL7 has its own grammar and its own syntax. We'll take a look at that in a bit. Then HL7 version 2.3 is one of the most widely used versions alongside HL7 2.5. You may see few implementations with 2.7, 2.8. This training is created from HL7 version 2.x perspective. We are not going to look at any specific version. We are going to look at a generic perspective. We are going to have a generic perspective with HL7 version 2.x because you may be dealing with any of the versions. Okay, and there are more than 50 data types, more than 80 message types. As I mentioned in the first session, in the beginning of the session, there are many, many, many message types. So you may be encountering with any one of the message types. So we should have an understanding of how to deal with any one of them. We'll see how to interact with them in the future. And there are 86 event types. So event types is another aspect within HL7 messaging structure. We'll talk about that tomorrow. So let us quickly run through the history of HL7. So as I told you, the problem started back in 1980s, and HL7 was um, formally announced as a version in 1990s. It started in 1980s, but in 1990s it was formally announced, and version 2.3, which is the famous ones that I said, are released around 1997. After that, we subsequently had many other versions released: 2.3, 2.1, 2.5, 2.7, 2.8, and later version 3 is also released. So 2.x was the most widely used. People might be using 0.3, 0.5, 0.7, depending on their requirement, their need. There is no much difference between these. It's just that few fields are added, few fields are removed, few data types are changed. So it is just changing the base structure a little bit here and there. But when when in 3.0 was introduced to the market, people uh, saw that it is a complete shift in the message structure, complete change in the architecture and everything. So 3.0 was not at all similar to what 2.x was there. So most of them ask me whether 3.0 is a good success, why people are not moving to 3.0. Even in today's world, as of today, if you see what is the standard that various hospitals or various countries are using, they go with 2.x. They don't touch 3.0. Okay, so there are many reasons around it. I'll just quote a couple of them so that you guys can have an idea. Now, when you upgrade your application in your mobile app, why would we do that? We see whether some new features are added. We upgrade our operating systems on our mobile apps, right? Because it may have new features or new um, bug fixes, something like that, right? Apparently, at the end of the day, you are upgrading it because you get a value, right? So that significant value was not pretty much added by version 3.0. By the time version 3.0 was released, it was 2.x was already established. Most of the hospitals are on 2.x. They are already satisfying their need of integrating with various applications. Why would they move to 3.0 if it is not adding any value? And it is not a compulsion from federal government anyway, right? So that is one of the reasons people did not upgrade to 3.0. And second reason they did not upgrade to 3.0 is it is very complicated. Version 2.0 can be understood by, I mean, 2.x can be understood even by doctors, even if they take deeper look at it. But when you see 3.0, it is completely revamp or completely change in the message structure altogether, which is complicated or not very much welcomed by the industry. So that is one of the reasons, and it is quite difficult to find resources. Honestly, I myself have never dealt with HL7 3.0 messaging from events perspective. Okay, so 3 is not in the radar in for anyone anymore in the healthcare industry as of today. But as part of version 3.0, there is another standard that is released, which is called a CDA, which is CCD, which is extensively used again. So we'll, as I said, we'll talk about CCDs in the last session, not needed at this point of time. Then you had fire. So earlier I did not include this. I included this from last 1 year as part of the history. Reason being, most people come up with the question, what is fire? So fire is the latest standard for transacting healthcare data, like HL7. HL7 is the healthcare data transacting standard, right? In the same way, fire is also introduced for the same purpose. But HL7 was started back in 1980s with technologies, methodologies that were there back in 1980s. But today, as we are progressing into a lot of technological advancements, there are many things that HL7 cannot do. HL7 messaging structure cannot, I mean, that messaging methodology cannot satisfy all the needs. It does to a very large extent, but not everything, especially when the data has to be transacted to outside world, like integrating mobile apps, which is one of the most required elements in today's world, right? So that is not supported by HL7 at all. So that's where fire has come into play, where they have started creating a new standard altogether as part of HL7 organization itself. This is called as a new standard, and this would um, transact the data in a different model altogether. Okay, which is not like HL7 messaging. And Fire is still evolving. We have seen a bump in the implementations of Fire in the last 3 years, specifically from 2019 when R4, after release of R4 version of Fire. Now that brings us to a question, would HL7 not be used? No, that's not the case. HL7 would be there for a very long time. You no need to worry about at least 7-8 years for sure, because Fire itself is evolving a lot. Um, and it will take a lot of time to say that Fire is, yes, this is standard version of Fire. So we are not there yet. Implementations are happening. There is a progress, but HL7 and Fire need to coexist for a very long time. So if you are jumping into data integration industry today in healthcare, you need to be aware of HL7 version 2, and you need to learn Fire slowly, so that you could be compliant with the healthcare industry. So these are the two things that would be needed. But HL7 V2 is the go-to option as of today for integrating between different healthcare applications. People don't use Fire for the things where HL7 is being used today. Next, let us see what are the advantages. So advantages are very simple. Your data can be transacted easily, seamlessly, without any error from one system to another, because there is no human intervention. So data transfer in the form of small messages. So if something goes wrong, you can troubleshoot, you can figure out what's the problem. No special tools are required unless you don't have this HL7 construction integrated or embedded within your application. If not, then you would need tools like Mirth, Connect, Rhapsody, and all. Okay, and then code is in the ASCII format, which is human readable, which means whoever uh, can read English can understand HL7. Even if you don't know the structure, if you take a deeper look at it, I am sure you'll be able to identify few of the elements out of the HL7 message structure. And then it can work on any OS. This is the wonderful feature that we have, because it operates on the application layer, which is common for all the operating systems. It can work on any OS, so there is no OS restriction there. So why do we need this standard? So I think we have the answer by now. If there is no standard, everyone will try creating their own message structure, and if they tend to go ahead and create their own message structure, then it is a time consuming process. They have to conclude on the format, they have to conclude on the structure, they have to talk about what they are sending where. All of this is eliminated with the standard, right? Standard will tell you this is a structure that you have to follow, this is the messaging format, and this is what you have to do with each and every data element that you are that you are about to transact. So that standard will bring a common understanding between all the parties who are going to integrate the data between their systems. Okay, that is where standards will come into play, and standards will speed up the process of integrating, which would result in quicker insurance payments and claims. And at the end of the day, all of these digital transactions are happening so that they can make error-free claims to the insurance companies and get the money, right? And standards would increase the interoperability. Interoperability is nothing but the potential of the applications to talk to each other, which is nothing but transacting data from one system to another. Greater safety for the patient as we do error-free transactions. That being said, it is not 100% proof. There are a lot of instances, scenarios where healthcare data exchanges have gone very bad. Let's say, I'll just give you one quick example. Let's say there is one huge lab which is receiving orders from different EHR systems. If they mess up with identifiers, if they send one hospital's related data to another hospital because of some routing problem or network incorrect network configurations, then it would hamper the other system who is on the other side. So these kind of things are there. So it is not 100% foolproof, but every care is taken during this implementation process so that these kind of errors wouldn't happen. So that's where it excels. As the standard excels in itself, that the data transactions are for greater safety for the patients. And obviously, when we follow all of these aspects, would have utmost quality being delivered. So now that we have understood what is HL7, where do we use HL7, why we have the name HL7, we looked at the problem and all. But we need to understand the basic principle based on which HL7 works, right? Structure is okay. It is used in data integrations in simple terms to send or throw data from one application so that the other person on the other side can grab that data and then display that in their application. in simple terms. But how is this happening? What is the basis of it? So now let us go back to our hospital workflow. So when we talk about trigger events, we need to go back to the hospital workflow a lot of times. So if you go back to hospital workflow, there within the hospital workflow, we understand that patient is walking in and patient says that I want to meet so and so doctor. What is the first question that the receptionist would ask? Whether you are here for the first time or have you been here earlier? If you have been earlier, can you give your phone number? Something like that, right? Let us assume that patient is visiting for the first time uh, for our illustration. And then once the patient is providing all of their information, receptionist would go ahead and create the patient record in their application, right? So once they create the application, create the patient within the application, this patient information should flow from PM system to EHR system, because doctor should also know what are the demographic details, what is the patient name, what is his age and all. How will he get to know if he do not receive the data? So eventually it is needed. It is an inevitable aspect that has to happen. Data should be sent from the PM system, which is a receptionist application, to the EHR system, which is doctor's application. Now, as soon as the patient data is saved within the PM application, that would trigger a message and generate an HL7 message and send it to the destination system. So this particular aspect of saving the patient details is called as an event. So there is one event that happened. Patient got registered. Next, patient will go ahead and have his appointment created. So the receptionist will go ahead and create an appointment within the PM system. And as soon as the appointment is created, this appointment information should also go to the EHR system, so the doctor would know in his appointment book what all appointment he has. Okay, so this appointment is another event. In this way, the entire patient cycle, from the point the patient enters into the hospital till he leaves, the all the workflow related aspects are broken down into chunks of events. Okay, now it is secondary whether that event related data has to be transacted and be sent to one system to another or not. Primary is the entire hospital is divided into chunks of events. Okay, now the patient walks to the doctor and he is discussing about the problems. In most of the hospitals today, even before patient meets the doctor, there are few vitals that will be captured, right? Their blood pressure, their heart rate, their temperature, their weight, height, and all of these vitals will be captured, right? They enter that information into the EHR system directly because that is clinical data that is related to the patient. So they will enter that vital information into the EHR system. But this data doesn't need to transact anywhere. So capturing vital information is an event where certain data is being captured and saved into the application. An event happened, but this data that happened during this event doesn't need to be sent anywhere because EHR is the final placeholder to save that data. Okay, then patient meets the doctor and doctor is placing an order for a test that has to be performed. Let's say complete blood count. Now this data that this test has to be performed has to be sent from EHR to the lab information system so that lab people can know that there is an order that is coming in and we have to perform test for this so and so patient. So hospital is entirely divided into chunks of events. Few events might need the data to be sent from one system to another, few may not need it. Okay, and the events that where the data has to be transacted from one system to another are called as trigger events because they are triggering the need for the data to be sent from one system to another. Okay, so HL7 is purely based on this aspect of trigger events. Okay, the standard definition is an event that happens in the real time will need the data to will generate the necessity for the data to be sent from one system to another. Okay, so such kind of events where there is necessity for the data to be sent from one system to another are called as trigger events. So HL7 purely works on this trigger events. If there is an event that is happening, if it has to send the data, it is called as trigger event. So what are the trigger events that we talked about in the first session, in the first slide, in the hospital workflow? Patient registration is a trigger event because data has to be sent. Update of existing patient details are trigger events. Patient's order being placed, patient result being received, these are trigger events. Appointment related transactions, those are trigger events. So that is the reason we have seen that there are more than 80 trigger events that are there, which would cover the entire hospital related transactions. Okay, each trigger event dedicated for one specific event that is happening in the real time world. So we'll explore more about trigger events in the upcoming sessions, but the entire hospital is broken down into various chunks of sections or workflow related uh, breakdown, so that we can categorize what are the kinds of trigger events that we may have under certain category. So usually the hospital is broken down into registration, appointments, related transaction, lab related transaction, amount or charge related transaction, pharmacy or insurance related transaction. Pharmacies and insurances are dealt with a different data standard altogether. As we are dealing with HL7 standards, we are going to cover the first four sections: registrations, appointments, labs, and charges. Now that we know that we know the principle of HL7, now let us see or look at the HL7 messaging structure. And we look at the structure and conclude today's session here, maybe another 10 more minutes. Please um, bear with me. So I would quickly like to take the help of a metaphor so that we can understand what is the structure of HL7 message. So let us say that there are two different people in the house. So before that, I would like to ask you guys a question. Um, let's say that we are back in 1980s or 1990s, and there is a power outage at your place, and it is completely dark, maybe 7 or 8 in the evening. You cannot see anything. What is the first thing that we would do? Can
We'll
someone?
we'll search the candle.
Perfect. We'll search for the candle, right? So we'll search for the candle, and we will navigate to the place where the candle is placed, and we will be able to lit the candle, right? But even if it is dark, even if we are not able to see anything, we are able to navigate, right? Because in everyone's house, there are few dedicated placeholders for few things. For example, let's take keychain, let's take clothes. We'll have that simple basic common placeholder. Similarly, even if we organize our rack or the cupboards in our house, we organize everything, right? We would say that first shelf would be dedicated for clothes, second one for books, and so on. Let us say that there are two different people in the house, and one of them is going out, and suddenly he forgot that he forgot to take his t-shirt. He will call the first guy at the house and say that, can you get it for me? The first guy will go ahead and get it. He will go access the rack, get into the first rack. In the first rack, first compartment is dedicated for t-shirts. He'll get to there, he'll grab the t-shirt and give it to the other guy. Now there is no dialogue exchange between where he has to get the t-shirt from, but there was only one ask from the other person is to get the t-shirt, and he was able to do so. This is also because of the same reason that they are able to um, they know that what is the common placeholder for that t-shirt is. So there are common placeholders in our regular day-to-day life. In the very same way, HL7 messaging or HL7 message structure also has common placeholders for each and every data element that is captured in the real-time world. Now, when you register a patient, you are capturing a lot of data elements, right? First name, last name, date of birth, gender, SSN, and email address, their physical address, everything. And each of these data elements have dedicated placeholders in the HL7 messaging structure. So the basic principle of HL7 is based on the fact that there are events happening in the real-time world. And when the data is being transacted in the form of a message structure, then the actual data elements that has to be transacted have a dedicated placeholder in the HL7 message structure. Let us see that by looking at the HL7 message structure. So in order to explore HL7 message structure, we need to first understand its architecture, right? So you can assume the same architecture that you're seeing on the screen. Every HL7 message has segments, is divided into segments, which you can compare to individual shells. And sorry, and every HL7 segment is divided into fields. Fields are divided into components. Components are divided into subcomponents. So you can assume it this way. One HL7 message may have many number of segments. Each segment is divided into compartment called as fields. Fields are again divided into components. Components may be again divided into subcomponents. So we will explore the message structure and see how these segregations are shown. But for you to understand it even more better way, just assume, take the example of a huge tree. The tree has the stem, right? And stem is kind of a message, assume that. And stem is divided into several branches, which are called as segments. Branches are further divided into sub branches, which are called as fields. Sub branches will have its own leaves, right? Leaves and petals will be there. So those leaves can be called as components, petals, small leaves can be called as subcomponents. Okay, you can uh, take the structure of a tree to keep in mind what would be the structure of an HL7 message. Okay, so now even before looking at the structure of the actual HL7 message, we need to understand its grammar. Right, I told you that HL7 messaging has its own grammatical syntax. So we call them as message delimiters. Few they call them as control characters because that would define or explain the structure of HL7 message. So same like our English language, there are few symbols. In English, we use spaces, full stops, commas, exclamations to express various syntaxes, right? In the same way, we have few different symbols here in the HL7 message structure. Let's see them. First one is segment terminator. We'll just touch base three of them today. Rest we will take a look at as and when we come across the examples. First, let us touch base on first three, which are needed to understand the structure for now. So first one is segment terminator, which is nothing but a carriage return. Carriage return would say that this is the end of the sentence compared to full stop in the English language. Okay. Next we have field separator. Field separator are nothing but a symbol which would separate two different words, same like our space in our sentence. Uh, a space separates two different terms, right? In the same way, field separates two different fields. We use the symbol called as pipe for representing the field separation. Then you have component separator. Field is further divided into components, right? So component separator, a caret symbol is used to go ahead and separate two components within the field. Okay. So now let us take a look at the structure. You have three more symbols called ampersand, tilde, and backward slash. Each of them have their own purpose. We'll take a look at them in the future. We are going to look at them with examples. First, we need to understand the HL7 message structure. Then we will get an understanding where this is used, and this is used. Let's go. So when you look at an example of the HL7 message, this is how HL7 message looks like. So it has all of these. When you look at an English sentence, it will have full stops, commas, spaces, right? In the same way, each one of them can be compared as one segment, and each segment is having few terms, but they are not separated with spaces, but with the help of pipes. Okay. So we will just explore one of the segments to understand what it is. Tomorrow we will take a deeper look at the entire, not entire structure, but deeper look at how do you read the HL7 message. Today we'll just get introduced to it. So this is not JavaScript. I just set the language to JavaScript so that I come across this question that is it JavaScript? As soon as I set the language here, it is not JavaScript. I'm just setting it because it is colorful, easy to separate, easy to understand. So let me set it to word wrap. All right. So if you look at this segment, there is a segment called PID. Every segment has its own name. Okay. The first three-letter acronym will represent the name of that particular segment, and the description of it will tell you what kind of data will be transacted in the HL7 message. So what does HL7 message contain basically? If you are capturing patient name, date of birth, gender, SSN, and other details like marital status and their insurance information, guarantor information when the patient is getting registered, right? So whatever data is captured during this process of registration has to be sent out to the HR system. So basically HL7 message structure or HL7 message would contain whatever you are capturing in the front end. Okay, but that is systematically organized in the form of this particular message. Okay, so if you look at this PID segment, PID is used to represent patient identification related information. So that's what that acronym is for. Every segment has its own name, and that segment name will tell us, or that itself would indicate what kind of data will be present in that particular segment. So you are seeing PV1 here. The PV1 is patient visit segment, which means it will have visit related information. You have other segments called as IN1. So insurances, patients are usually having insurances these days, right? So if that insurance information is captured in the front end, then there should be a segment to transact the data in the HL7 message. So for that purpose, we have segment called as IN1, which is insurance segment. Okay. So for every data that you transact or capture in the real-time world, there is a corresponding segment in the HL7 message structure. So if you look at patient identification related segment, you can see that we have various data elements: patient's name, patient's date of birth, patient's gender, patient's address, and patient's phone number, patient's marital status, and various other things. Okay, so basically the data that you captured is present here. But the fact is, now the thing that we need to understand is why patient name is going here only, why date of birth is being sent only here. So this is where we come back to the same principle of our candle and other dedicated placeholders that we have at home. When HL7 organization is defining the structure of the HL7 message, it is clearly telling where you should send what kind of data elements. So it told that in PID segment, you have to go ahead and send patient related information. Clear. Now within PID segment, we have many different fields. So whatever is held between two pipes is called as a field. So this is one field, this is one field, this is one field. I told you just now, right? Segments are divided into fields. So the entire segment is divided into fields with the help of pipes. So this is field one, this is another field, this is another field, this is an empty field. We don't have any data there. And this is another field, this is another field, and so on. And each of these field has a field position sequenced from one. So this is field number one. Don't look at that number, that is deceiving. I'll tell you what is the importance of that number later. So just don't consider that number there. Let me put it as 0. So this is field number 1. This is field number 2. This is field number 3, field number 4, field number 5, and so on. So those field positions will tell us that this particular position is dedicated for so and so data. Okay, now if you read through the field numbers or field positions, this is field number 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. In HL7 message structure, segment PID, field position number 5 is always dedicated for patient name. Okay, in our previous example, in the rack, shelf number 1, compartment number 1 is always dedicated for t-shirts. Everyone in the house follows that. And everyone who is aware of the environment of the house is aware that t-shirts are present in first rack, first segment. And if t-shirts are not there, they will leave that compartment as blank, but they wouldn't bring some other thing and put it in there, as per the common understanding between all the people of the house. In the same way, when you look at HL7 message structure, segment PID, field number 5 is always dedicated for patient name. Segment 7 is, field number 7 is always dedicated for date of birth. 8 is always dedicated for gender, representing gender. Now you're seeing that 6 is blank, 4 is blank. 4 is for sending MRN number, which is medical record number. 6 is for sending mother's maiden name. 7 is for date of birth. Let's say patient did not give the date of birth. Then what should we send in PID 7? If you do not have the data, you leave that data as blank, that field as blank. Just because you don't have the data, we don't advance the data elements, or we don't shuffle the data elements. Okay, because these are dedicated placeholders. Okay, so that's how the HL7 standard is structurized. And this is how you transact the data. Now, whoever is receiving this HL7 message anywhere in the world, they know that PID 5 is for patient name. So if they have to destructure the HL7 message and understand what data is present where, if I want to grab patient name, I will grab patient name. I'll go to PID segment, go to field number 5, and I will grab the patient name from there. Okay. If I want address, I'll go to PID 11. If I want phone number, I'll go to PID 13 or PID 40. If I want to get marital status, I'll go to PID 16. Okay. So in that way, I'll go to various fields to get various data elements and grab those data elements and insert them into my database. Okay. So that's what HL7 message structure looks like. So we'll go ahead and conclude today's session here. So to summarize, we have looked at HL7 message structure, and who can get trained and certified in HL7 message structure? Any person who would like to go ahead and explore more about HL7 and make career in HL7, they can go ahead and learn. Basics can be learned by all the persons, all the people, because it is just understanding where we have what kind of data. Complications would come in when they need to understand the functional reasons behind certain data element or certain structure. So, but that can be learned. You don't need any technological related knowledge to learn HL7. Intermediate people, intermediary learning of about HL7, it can be learned by programmers because they do code healthcare related applications and all. Doctors and paramedics can also learn that. Experts with certification, again, programmers, architects, and all should learn very much in depth about HL7, events, structures, data types, and a lot of other things. So to summarize, HL7 is mandatory for interoperability. There is no other alternate solution for transacting data from one application to another. HL7 is a go-to option and is a standard option. So it gives a lot of advantage, brings in a lot of business for a lot of vendors, especially in IT services industry. And healthcare is digitizing a lot, so it will help you a lot in various sections of the data. So we'll conclude today's session here. Tomorrow we will go ahead and take a look at trigger events. What are the various trigger events that we have? We will explore more about the HL7 message structure. We'll talk what components are, how do you read an HL7 message, what tools you use to break down the HL7 message, because reading each and every field is always not possible. While implementing, there may be a need many times that you have to go ahead and um, understand what is the structure, what is the field and all. So during that process, you may waste a lot of time. So we have some tools that we can use to break down the HL7 message and give us a complete view of the HL7 message. So we'll talk about such tools. We'll take a look at one example of one of the tools as well, so that it would be easy for you. But I would recommend, if you're a beginner, it's better to read through so that you can they can imprint on your mind and you do remember a lot of fields. Do we need to remember everything? Absolutely not. Only most common fields, because no one can learn and recollect all the fields at always, right? So today's session was a little longer, but in everyday session, we will go ahead and have it only for 45 to 50 minutes, and then we'll open up for questions, and then we'll wrap it up in an hour. Okay. All right, I'll open up for questions. Anyone has any questions, either related to course or training or the content that we have seen today?
Are you using any specific EHR? And course?
Good question. So we are not going to use the EHR application because application is something that uh, can you be on hello? All right. So Oscar to Amar, to answer your question, we are not going to use any specific EHR application, but we'll be using an EHR DB. So I have created demo a sample demo database that I'll be sharing with you, and we'll be using that database to extract data from the database and construct HL7 messages using Mirth Connect. We'll also be interpreting data, HL7 data from HL7 message, and writing the data back to the database. So we'll take that support of that demo EHR database. End of the day, we are not working with application. As data integration engineers, we are working with the databases. So that's where we'll explore more. Does that answer your question, Omar?
Yeah, you mentioned as well that going to be labs or going to be assignment. Are these going to be submitted to be looked at? What is the process? And if there is a cost or a fee for this course?
Yeah. So labs and all. So during our training, once we complete each phase of the learning of Mirth integration engine, I would give you some assignments, not only for Mirth, but also for HL7. So you would need to submit them back to me. I would review them. We'll make some corrections if there are any. If not, well and good. Regarding the fees and all, you can contact Mr. Srinivas. Srinivas would paste his details in the chat. So yeah, this course has a fee, and you can pay it, and you can enroll yourself if you want to continue. So first two sessions are free. From third sessions, if you want to continue, then you can go ahead and enroll and continue with that. All right. Any other questions from anyone? Pratibha, you has a question?
Yeah, so are we going to cover Rhapsody tool as well?
Sorry.
Are we going to cover Rhapsody tool as well in this course?
No, we are not going to cover Rhapsody.
Okay.
Reason is Rhapsody is not a free tool. We don't get it. That's the
Okay.
reason we cannot display, we cannot demo, or we cannot work. No one can go ahead and have hands-on with Rhapsody. So there is no scope or opportunity to train on Rhapsody there. So that's the reason we are not going to touch on Rhapsody. Not only just
Okay.
with me, but also with other healthcare trainers out there.
Yes.
No one would be able to give that to you.
Okay. So like it is very much different from the Mirth Connect, or like so, some like quite similar with this tool.
Process would be pretty much same. So I have worked on Rhapsody as well, but the way you
Hmm.
execute on how you build the interfaces is different on Rhapsody.
Okay.
Okay, the architecture on how Rhapsody works is different, but it is not rocket science. Again, if you understand the integration world, it's not a big deal to understand Rhapsody.
Okay.
You have to
So the
get
basic will be
familiarized with
covered.
the application. Yes.
Okay. Okay. That's it.
Yep. Any other questions from anyone?
This is Wasim.
Yeah,
I
Wasim.
just want to confirm once course has started, job.
Uh, we would not exclusively say that we are providing the jobs, but we would definitely help with your resume formatting and how you have to prepare the WhatsApp group will be open. I'll be open. I'll be open. Yeah, once the course is done, it's not that you learn everything within the course timeline, right? So it's a continuous process of learning. So I get many people contact me from previous batches with various questions. I do help with them. So we would let you know if there are any openings anywhere, then you can go ahead and apply. But we wouldn't promise a job for sure, that kind of thing.
Okay, thank you. And the second question is, so whatever we will learn, so it
Mhm.
totally would be hands-on practice once we get the job and we can start without any kind of the additional training, right?
Addition, any kind could you repeat the last sentence? I'm sorry.
No, I just want to confirm.
Mhm.
Just I have completed this course, which is provided by you,
Mhm.
and I get the job. So, can we start directly whatever they are assigning to me, or is there any different will be there?
Oh, okay. I got your question. So, yeah, you see, that depends on the level of practice that you do. The sessions that I cover, or the topics that we cover in the sessions are zero to basic to intermediate level. So the more you practice, the more you achieve the perfection on what is the process that is followed. You should be able to handle most of the work, unless it is deep coding that is there, which comes through experience, obviously. So we are going to have complete practical approach so that it will mimic what you do in the real time. So that is incorporated within the course.
Okay, thank you. And the reason behind asking this question because I do have 8.5 year experience.
Mhm.
So once I completed your course, so directly we can update these things on a
Yes,
resume.
absolutely.
Once they are call me, and I hope they will not consider me as a fresher for HL7. That's why I'm asking.
Correct. Correct. So if you could explain what we are going through the training, then you would definitely not sound like a fresher.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. You're welcome.
Will you provide a course completion certificate also?
Yes. Yes. Once the course is done, you can reach out to Srinivas. He will go ahead and share the certificates with you guys.
Okay.
So do we have to pass any exam for that certification, or that will be just a default certification for everyone?
Um, so all that you have to do is the assignments that I am giving. You just need to complete them, specifically Mirth related assignments. And if you are following by that, then you will get the course completion certificate. That is the criteria. That's all. No specific
Okay,
exam at
is
the end.
Okay, I'm sorry for interruption. I just want to confirm one more thing.
Mhm.
For the certification, we have to pay any additional amount, or just it will cover whatever you have signed the fees structure.
No. So this training and course completion certificate that we are talking about is from our institute perspective. If you want HL7 certification to be done, then you have to apply with HL7 organization. They are the only authorized body to go ahead and give you certification on HL7 messaging standard. And you have to pay additional fees for that. That transaction and interaction would be totally different and independent of what we are doing here.
Okay, so just it will be considered as a basic certification, but actual certification will provided by another company, right?
Not company. Yeah. I mean, the HL7 organization.
Institution,
Right.
HL7, which is
Right. Correct.
directly, right, right.
Yes. Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. You're welcome. No problem.
One last question, why are the fees are not publicized in public? Just wanted to understand why you don't have your fees on the website.
So it depends on, I mean, we quote certain fees to each and every individual, and later end of the day, negotiations would happen, and certain people can pay a certain amount, cannot pay a certain amount. So if that is conclusive, if that is okay by the institute and the vendor or the trainee, then they would go ahead and conclude on or lock on certain fees and proceed from there. Um, so you can reach out directly to Srinivas. He's the administrator. He takes care of all the fees related, admin related transactions, and he would reach out to you. He would let you know what is the fees and all. Okay. Any other questions from anyone?
And how much time it will take for the certification, whatever you are providing it?
Our course will run for 4 to 6 weeks.
4 to 6 weeks. Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Yep.
Thank you for covering all the questions.
No
So I
problem.
think we should wrap this.
Yep. All right. If everyone is done, thank you everyone for joining today's session. You guys can join tomorrow as well. As I said, tomorrow is also a free session. But if you would like to proceed further, you have to enroll. And from third session, we can enroll and we can continue.
Okay, okay. I just want to one more question based
Sure.
on just you have rejoin on the next day. So timing would be same 7
Yes.
a.m.
7 a.m.
So I think
Indian
it is
time.
not possible. Actually, it is not possible for me just
Mhm.
because yesterday I was on leave.
Mhm.
So I wake up early in the morning.
Mhm.
So I joined this call. Otherwise, it is not possible for me because I'm doing a night shift for the
Mhm.
US client.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
do you have any other time schedule?
This is the only time that we run. But as I said in the beginning of the session, if you are unable to go ahead and attend it from 7 to 8, we upload the recording on the same day on the drive, and we share that with you all so that you can go through it during your afternoon and see what all topics we have covered, and let me know if you have any questions. I'll be glad to answer it during that day itself.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
many
But
people do that because we have people from various countries, but this is the only time that we run the that is feasible for me to take the training through. So most of the people would go through the recording on the same day and come back to me with any questions they have because of the
thank
obviously
you.
time constraints. All right. So if you do not have any questions, I think we can conclude here, and we can catch up tomorrow. So if you guys have any questions tomorrow, you guys can let me know as well. Thank you everyone for joining and staying for a little longer. Uh, you all have a
Thank
very good day.
thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thanks everyone. Bye bye.